In the dimly lit fresh foods market, an exhausted cashier faced a choice that would change everything. Alex Martinez stared through the glass doors at John, a homeless veteran shivering in the cold, while inside the store, perfectly good food was being tossed into dumpsters. One decision to help another human being cost Alex his job, but he never expected what happened next. When the video of his public firing went viral, it caught the attention of someone unexpected: Keanu Reeves. What unfolded in the following days would expose corporate greed, challenge society's indifference, and prove that sometimes the biggest acts of kindness come with the heaviest price. Before this story continues, watch how a simple act of compassion collided with heartless policy, and witness the moment a Hollywood legend stepped in to rewrite the rules of humanity. The harsh fluorescent lights of Fresh Foods Market buzzed overhead as Alex Martinez counted the minutes until closing time. The evening crowd had thinned, leaving only the occasional customer wandering through the aisles. For most, this was just another grocery store, but for Alex, every shift carried the weight of survival. His mother's medical bills piled up at home, each one a reminder of why he couldn't afford to lose this job. Alex's fingers moved mechanically across the register, scanning items while his mind drifted to the morning staff meeting. Karen Matthews, the store manager, had delivered another stern lecture about inventory management. Her voice, sharp and cold, still echoed in his ears. Every item that leaves this store without payment is theft, no exceptions. The other employees had nodded silently, their eyes fixed on the floor, but Alex had seen the discomfort in their expressions. The store's backroom told a different story. Every night, Alex watched as perfectly good food was tossed into dumpsters. Bread just past its sell-by date, fruit with minor blemishes, dairy products approaching expiration, all destined for waste while hunger lived right outside their doors. The amount of discarded food had grown over the past months, a silent testimony to Karen's obsession with maintaining premium standards. Karen Matthews walked through the store like she owned it, though she was just another cog in the corporate machine. Her designer clothes and perfectly manicured nails created a stark contrast with the employees' worn uniforms. She had climbed the corporate ladder through strict adherence to policy, treating rules as sacred texts that could never be questioned. 3 employees had already been fired this month for inventory discrepancies. The security cameras tracked every movement, their red lights blinking like tiny warning signs. Alex had received his first warning 2 weeks ago when he allowed an elderly customer to use an expired coupon. "Compassion doesn't pay the bills," Karen had said, her voice dripping with condescension. The second warning came after he helped a mother struggling to afford baby formula. Each incident was documented in his file, building a case for termination. Tonight, the waste seemed especially egregious. The holiday weekend had led to overstock, and now entire carts of food were being wheeled to the dumpster. Alex watched as his co-worker Thomas quietly documented each item, his hands trembling as he logged perfectly good meals as disposal. The security guard stood nearby, ensuring nothing disappeared during the process, Karen's latest policy to prevent employee theft. Through the store's glass front, Alex could see the regular faces of those who had nowhere else to go. John, the homeless veteran who slept in the parking lot, had become a familiar presence. His military jacket, worn but clean, spoke of a dignity that refused to break. Other employees whispered about his story, how he had served 3 tours, how life had crumbled upon his return. But store policy was clear. Loiterers were to be reported and removed. Alex's phone buzzed with a text from his mother's nurse. Another medication had increased in price. His chest tightened as he calculated the numbers in his head. Rent, utilities, medical bills. This job was his lifeline, the only thing keeping their fragile world from collapse. Yet every night, he watched as food worth thousands of dollars was thrown away while people went hungry. The tension in the store had been building for weeks. Employee morale had plummeted under Karen's increasingly draconian policies. The break room, once filled with conversation and laughter, had become a place of whispered complaints and nervous glances. Everyone knew they were one violation away from losing their jobs. As closing time approached, Alex caught his reflection in the store window. Dark circles under his eyes testified to endless double shifts, to nights spent worrying about bills and days spent walking the tightrope of Karen's rules. The store's motto, "Fresh Foods, Fresh Start," glowed above him in neon letters, its promise feeling more hollow with each passing day. Outside, the temperature was dropping. John had pulled his thin jacket tighter, his breath visible in the cold air. Behind Alex, the sound of more food being wheeled to the dumpster echoed through the empty aisles. The moment of decision was approaching, one that would either maintain the status quo or shatter it completely. In the quiet of the almost empty store, Alex Martinez stood at the crossroads of policy and humanity, unaware that his next choice would spark a chain of events that would reach far beyond these walls. The moment that changed everything happened just after midnight. The last customer had left, leaving only the quiet hum of refrigerators and the soft squeak of mops against the floor. Alex stood by the back door, watching as Thomas wheeled the final cart of discarded food toward the dumpster. The security guard, Mike, checked his phone, clearly eager for his shift to end. Something inside Alex snapped. Maybe it was the sight of John huddled against the building's wall, or maybe it was the memory of his mother rationing her own meals to afford medication. Without fully processing the consequences, Alex stepped forward, raising his hand to stop Thomas. The wheels of the cart squealed to a halt. Thomas looked at Alex with understanding in his eyes, but also fear. They both knew what was about to happen. Alex began pulling items from the cart, bread still soft in its packaging, fruits with barely noticeable imperfections, sealed containers of prepared meals just hours past their best-by time. His hands moved quickly, efficiently, gathering enough to feed not just John, but others who needed it. Mike noticed. The security guard straightened up, uncertainty crossing his face. He had always been one of the more reasonable staff members, sometimes looking the other way when employees bent minor rules. But this was different. This was explicit defiance of store policy. His hand moved toward the radio on his belt, then stopped. He turned away, pretending to check something in the opposite direction. Alex gathered the food into a box, his heart pounding but his movements steady. Through the window, he could see John beginning his nightly routine of finding the warmest spot to sleep. The veteran's hands shook as he arranged his few possessions, a reminder of the tremors that had made finding work impossible. The back door opened silently. Alex stepped out into the cold, the box of food heavy in his arms. John looked up, surprise and wariness crossing his weathered face. No words were exchanged. None were needed. The box changed hands, and dignity was preserved. John's eyes met Alex's, conveying a gratitude deeper than words could express. What Alex didn't notice was the red light of the security camera, blinking steadily as it recorded every moment. He didn't see Karen Matthews' car still in the parking lot, or her figure watching from the darkness of her office. She had stayed late, suspicious of inventory discrepancies, determined to catch the culprit. The next morning arrived with fluorescent brutality. Alex had barely clocked in when Karen's voice cut through the morning bustle. "Mr. Martinez." "My office." "Now." The other employees exchanged nervous glances. Everyone knew that tone. Karen's office was cold, both in temperature and atmosphere. Security footage played silently on her computer screen. Alex stood before her desk, his back straight despite the exhaustion of another sleepless night. The evidence was irrefutable. The camera had captured everything. What happened next would be replayed thousands of times on social media. Karen didn't invite Alex to sit. She didn't ask for an explanation. Instead, she stood, smoothing her designer blazer, and walked to the office door. Opening it wide, she ensured her voice would carry across the store floor. "Alex Martinez, you are terminated effective immediately for theft of company property." Her voice was theatrical, designed to make an example. Fresh Foods Market has zero tolerance for employees who steal from this establishment. Customers stopped their shopping, turning to watch the scene unfold. Alex didn't argue. He didn't try to explain about John, about hunger, about waste. He simply removed his name tag, placed it on Karen's desk, and turned to leave. But Karen wasn't finished. She followed him onto the store floor, her heels clicking against the tiles like a judge's gavel. "Let this be a lesson," she announced to the gathered crowd of employees and customers. "This company's property is protected. Anyone who thinks they can give away what doesn't belong to them will face the same consequences." What Karen didn't notice was Thomas in the crowd, his phone raised, recording everything. She didn't see the young mother by the dairy case, tears in her eyes as she remembered Alex helping her last week. She didn't notice the elderly couple who had been regular customers for decades, their faces twisted in disgust at the display of corporate cruelty. Alex walked through the automatic doors for the last time, the morning sun harsh against his face. Behind him, the video of his public humiliation was already being uploaded, beginning its journey through the digital world. In less than 24 hours, it would reach the eyes of someone who would change everything. The video spread across social media platforms with the speed and force of a digital wildfire. Within hours, #FreshFoodShame and #JusticeForAlex were trending. The original footage, captured by Thomas, showed every painful second of Alex's humiliation. The cruel tone in Karen's voice, the stunned faces of customers, and Alex's dignified silence as he walked away. Local news stations picked up the story by evening. Security footage from the previous night emerged, showing Alex's act of kindness juxtaposed against Karen's harsh response. The contrast was stark. Boxes of perfectly good food destined for waste, a hungry veteran in the cold, and a young man choosing compassion over policy. Comments flooded every platform. Former employees came forward with their own stories of Fresh Foods Market's wasteful practices and Karen's iron-fisted management. A retired store supervisor revealed that the company had rejected multiple proposals for food donation programs, citing liability concerns that other retailers had long since resolved. Alex's story resonated deeply in a time when many felt disconnected from basic humanity. His mother's medical struggles emerged in the coverage, adding another layer to the narrative. Local reporters discovered that Alex had been working double shifts for months, trying to keep up with mounting healthcare costs while supporting their small household. The store's corporate office maintained radio silence as public outrage grew. Their social media accounts were bombarded with comments demanding action. Food waste activists used the incident to highlight a broader problem: millions of pounds of edible food thrown away while hunger persisted in communities across the country. John, the homeless veteran who had received the food, was found by local journalists. His story added fuel to the fire. 3 tours of duty, a Purple Heart recipient, now reduced to sleeping in parking lots while perfectly good food was destroyed yards away. Veterans groups joined the chorus of voices demanding accountability. Karen Matthews retreated into defensive silence. Security cameras caught her sneaking out of the store's back entrance to avoid reporters. Inside, employee morale hit rock bottom. Sales dropped as regular customers took their business elsewhere, many leaving signs of protest in their abandoned shopping carts. Alex spent these days in a daze, overwhelmed by messages of support but increasingly anxious about his future. Job applications went unanswered. Karen's accusations of theft had created a black mark on his employment record. His mother's next round of treatments loomed closer, and their savings were dwindling rapidly. Local community members started a GoFundMe campaign, but Alex was reluctant to accept charity. "I'm not the hero they're making me out to be," he told a sympathetic reporter. "I just couldn't watch more food go to waste when people are hungry. Anyone would have done the same." But they hadn't, and that was precisely why his story struck such a powerful chord. The video continued to gain traction, shared by celebrities and activists alike. Each share added new layers of commentary about corporate waste, human dignity, and the cost of choosing kindness in a system designed to punish it. Food waste statistics became part of the conversation. 40% of food in America went to waste while millions faced food insecurity. Protests began appearing outside Fresh Foods Market locations across the city. Signs read "Food is for people, not dumpsters," and "Kindness isn't theft." The corporate office finally released a statement defending their policies, citing food safety regulations and liability concerns. Their response only intensified the backlash. Then, 7 days after Alex's firing, something changed. A new set of eyes landed on the viral video, watching it late at night in a hotel room between movie shoots. The same security footage that had been used to condemn Alex now captured the attention of someone who had built a reputation for quiet acts of kindness, someone known for using his platform to right wrongs. Keanu Reeves put down his phone and made a call. The next morning, his team began gathering information about Fresh Foods Market, their policies, and the young cashier who had chosen compassion over compliance. In less than 24 hours, he would walk through those same automatic doors where Alex had been humiliated, carrying with him the power to transform a moment of cruelty into a catalyst for change. The security guard at Fresh Foods Market almost dropped his coffee when Keanu Reeves walked through the automatic doors early Tuesday morning. The actor moved with purposeful steps, dressed in his characteristic black jacket and jeans, his presence commanding attention without seeking it. The store had just opened, and the morning rush hadn't started. Perfect timing for what needed to happen. Karen Matthews was in her office, drafting another memo about inventory control when her phone buzzed with urgent messages. She ignored them at first, too focused on tightening regulations that would prevent another Alex incident. The knock on her office door was firm, authoritative. When she opened it, the sight of Keanu Reeves standing there made her perfectly maintained composure crack. His voice was calm but carried an unmistakable weight. "We need to talk about Alex Martinez." Karen's attempt at a professional smile faltered. Behind Keanu, employees had begun to gather, phones discreetly emerging from pockets. This wasn't a coincidence. Keanu had spent the past day learning everything about fresh foods markets practices. He had watched every video, read every comment, and most importantly, spoken with John, the homeless veteran. The conversation with John had lasted hours, covering not just the incident with Alex but the larger pattern of waste and indifference. John had shown him the spot where he slept, explaining how Alex's kindness had been the first real humanity he'd experienced in months. Keanu had also tracked down Alex, finding him at his mother's small apartment. The young man's story, working double shifts, struggling with medical bills, witnessing nightly waste while people went hungry, had struck a chord. But it was Alex's quiet dignity, his refusal to be bitter despite everything, that had convinced Keanu this was about more than just one firing. Now, standing in Karen's office, Keanu placed a folder on her desk. Inside were photographs, dozens of them, taken by employees over months, showing the scale of fresh foods markets' food waste. Alongside these were statistics about hunger in their community, liability protection laws for food donation, and successful food recovery programs at other retailers. "This isn't about one employee or one box of food," Keanu said, his voice carrying to the growing crowd outside the office. "This is about a system that punishes kindness and rewards waste." Karen started to speak, to cite policy and procedure, but Keanu raised his hand slightly, silencing her with a gesture. He moved to the office window, looking out at the store floor where Alex had been humiliated. "You had a choice that morning," he continued. "You chose to make an example of someone whose only crime was showing humanity. But you never asked why he did it. You never considered that your policies might be the real problem." Karen's defense crumbled as Keanu methodically laid out the reality. How other stores had implemented successful donation programs, how liability concerns were outdated excuses, how her management style had created a culture of fear rather than responsibility. With each point, her carefully constructed justifications fell away. The audience outside the office had grown. Employees who had lived under Karen's strict rules watched as something unprecedented unfolded. Their manager, usually so confident in her authority, rendered speechless by the quiet force of Keanu's words. "I'm not here to get you fired," Keanu said, surprising everyone. "I'm here to show you a better way." He pulled out his phone, displaying emails from corporate executives who had suddenly become very interested in policy reform after learning of his involvement. "The real question is, are you willing to be part of the solution?" The silence that followed was heavy with possibility. Through the office window, everyone could see the morning sun illuminating the store's motto, "Fresh foods, fresh start." For the first time, those words held the potential for real meaning. Keanu's presence had transformed the narrative. This wasn't just about Alex anymore. It was about challenging a system that had lost its humanity. As he stood in that office, his quiet authority resonating through the store, everyone present knew they were witnessing more than just a confrontation. They were seeing the beginning of a change that would ripple far beyond these walls. The moment of transformation began with a simple question from Keanu. "Do you know what it feels like to be hungry?" His voice carried across the now silent store. Karen stood frozen, her carefully constructed world of policies and procedures crumbling around her. The morning sun streamed through the store's windows, casting long shadows across the gathered crowd of employees and early morning customers. Keanu moved from Karen's office onto the store floor, the same space where Alex had been publicly shamed. His presence commanded attention without demanding it. Karen followed, her heels no longer clicking with their usual confidence. The security cameras blinked silently, recording another moment that would soon captivate millions. "Every night," Keanu continued, his voice steady and measured, "food worth thousands of dollars goes into your dumpsters. Every night, people go to sleep hungry within sight of this store. You're not just throwing away food, you're throwing away dignity." The words hung in the air, heavy with truth that could no longer be ignored. Thomas, still working his morning shift, stood near the dairy section, his phone recording once again. But this time, the story being captured was different. The power dynamic had shifted. Karen, who had wielded policy like a weapon, found herself stripped of her usual authority. Keanu turned to address the gathered employees, his eyes meeting each of theirs. "Alex Martinez didn't steal from this store," he said, his words carrying to every corner of the building. "He returned something that had been stolen from all of us, our humanity." Several employees nodded, some wiping tears from their eyes. Karen attempted to regain control of the situation. "Our policies exist for a reason," she began, but her voice wavered. "Food safety regulations." Keanu raised his hand, silencing her with gentle authority. "I've spent the last day researching your regulations," he responded. "I've spoken with lawyers, food safety experts, and corporate leadership. The laws you hide behind actually protect food donation. The liability you fear doesn't exist. What exists is a choice, your choice, to destroy food rather than help people." The morning sun had risen higher, illuminating the store's aisles. A young mother held her child closer, watching the scene unfold. An elderly couple who had witnessed Alex's firing stood near the checkout, their cart forgotten. The store's usual morning bustle had transformed into reverent silence. "The world is watching," Keanu continued, gesturing to the phones recording the moment. "They're not just watching this store. They're watching how we treat each other. They're watching what we value. They're watching what we're willing to throw away." Karen's composure finally broke. "What do you want from me?" she asked, her voice small in the vast space of the store. The question hung in the air, heavy with the weight of everything that had led to this moment. Keanu's response was gentle but firm. "I want you to walk outside. I want you to look into the eyes of the people you've turned away. I want you to explain to them why your policies matter more than their hunger." He paused, letting the words sink in. "Then I want you to help me fix this." The silence that followed was profound. Employees who had lived in fear of Karen's rules watched as their managers' carefully constructed walls crumbled. The security guard who had turned away so many hungry people stood with his head bowed. The morning light caught the tears on several faces. "Change starts here," Keanu said, his voice carrying hope rather than condemnation. "Not because I'm standing here. Not because cameras are rolling. But because it's right. Because every person who walks through these doors, whether they're buying food or needing food, deserves dignity." The moment stretched, filled with possibility. Karen looked around at the faces watching her. Employees she had ruled through fear, customers who had witnessed her cruelty, a community that had risen up against injustice. In that moment, surrounded by witnesses and stripped of her defenses, she faced a choice that would define more than just her career. The security cameras continued their silent vigil, recording another chapter in a story that had captivated millions. But this time, they captured something different. Not the destruction of dignity, but its restoration. Not the enforcement of policy, but the triumph of humanity. The transformation at Fresh Foods Market unfolded rapidly in the days following Keanu's intervention. The corporate office, spurred by the viral confrontation and mounting public pressure, announced sweeping changes that would reshape not just one store, but their entire chain's approach to food waste and community responsibility. Alex Martinez received a phone call he never expected. The company's regional director personally requested his return, not just as a cashier, but as the coordinator of their newly created food recovery program. His salary would be doubled, and more importantly, he would have the authority to implement the changes he had risked everything to champion. Karen Matthews surprised everyone by accepting a different kind of accountability. Rather than resign or transfer, she requested to work directly with Alex on the new program. The humility of her transformation became its own story of redemption. Security footage captured a moment that moved many to tears. Karen personally helping John, the homeless veteran, select groceries from the store's new community food shelf. The new policies rolled out with remarkable speed. Fresh Foods Market partnered with local food banks and homeless shelters, establishing a systematic approach to food recovery. Items approaching their sell-by dates were no longer destined for dumpsters but were carefully sorted for immediate distribution to those in need. The liability concerns that had once seemed insurmountable were addressed through proper protocols and existing Good Samaritan laws. John became a regular presence at the store, but in a different way. Alex hired him as part of the food recovery team, his military experience with logistics proving invaluable in organizing the distribution system. His trembling hands found purpose in careful inventory management, and his eyes, once haunted by desperation, now shone with restored dignity. The store's transformation extended beyond food donation. Karen, working closely with Alex, implemented training programs to help employees recognize and assist customers in need. The same security cameras that had once been tools of surveillance now documented daily acts of kindness. Employees helping elderly customers carry groceries, discreet assistance for struggling families, and the quiet dignity of people receiving help without humiliation. Keanu's influence continued even after he left. His production company documented the store's transformation, creating a powerful short film about corporate responsibility and human dignity. The film premiered at a community event in the store's parking lot, with John and Alex as guests of honor. The image of them standing alongside Keanu, sharing their story with news outlets worldwide, became a symbol of change possible when compassion confronts rigid policy. The impact rippled through the retail industry. Other chains, facing similar scrutiny of their waste policies, began implementing their own food recovery programs. Fresh Foods Market stock price, which had initially dipped during the controversy, rose steadily as consumers responded to their genuine commitment to community welfare. Alex's mother watched these changes from her hospital room, her treatment now fully covered by his new health insurance. She cried when she saw the news coverage of her son standing with Keanu, not just because of pride, but because she recognized in his quiet strength the same spirit that had driven him to help others even when it cost him everything. The store's physical transformation was equally remarkable. The dumpsters that had once overflowed with discarded food were replaced with organized donation stations. The break room, once tense with fear, buzzed with employees sharing stories of lives touched through the new programs. Even the store's motto, Fresh Foods, Fresh Start, took on new meaning, now backed by actions rather than empty corporate promises. 1 month after the changes, Fresh Foods Market hosted a community dinner in their parking lot. Tables stretched across the asphalt, filled with people from all walks of life, regular customers, local homeless individuals, employees, and families struggling to make ends meet. Karen served food alongside Alex and John, her designer clothes replaced by a simple volunteer apron. The security cameras captured it all, but now they recorded a different kind of accountability, the kind that measured success in smiles, dignity restored, and lives transformed. The story of Fresh Foods Market became more than a viral moment or a celebrity intervention. It became a blueprint for how corporate America could align profit with purpose, policy with compassion, and business success with human dignity. In the end, the most powerful change wasn't in the policies or programs. It was in the restoration of humanity to a place where it had been systematically stripped away. 3 months after Keanu's intervention, Fresh Foods Market had become a case study in corporate transformation. The store's success proved that compassion and profitability could coexist, inspiring changes across the retail industry. On a quiet Sunday morning, Alex stood in the newly created Community Resource Center, once Karen's office, watching the store come to life. The morning sun illuminated the transformed space. Where security cameras had once monitored for theft, they now watched over a thriving community hub. The store's front window, previously stark and corporate, displayed a photo wall showcasing success stories. John in his new uniform, Karen serving at community dinners, employees and customers working together to reduce food waste. John had flourished in his role. His military precision brought efficiency to the food recovery program, while his understanding of street life helped the store reach those most in need. His tremors had subsided, replaced by steady hands that carefully organized donations and mentored others transitioning from homelessness to employment. Karen's transformation proved equally profound. She now taught other store managers about implementing compassionate policies, her former rigidity replaced by genuine concern for community welfare. Her designer clothes gathered dust as she preferred working directly with those she once would have turned away. The employees who had feared her now sought her guidance in helping customers in need. Alex's mother recovered enough to visit the store, witnessing firsthand the impact of her son's courage. She watched as he coordinated with local shelters, trained new employees in food recovery protocols, and maintained the dignity of those seeking assistance. The dark circles under his eyes had faded, replaced by the quiet confidence of someone who had found his true purpose. The store's financial reports told an unexpected story. Food waste costs had plummeted, customer loyalty had soared, and employee turnover had dropped to near zero. The corporate office now highlighted Fresh Foods Market as their flagship location for social responsibility, sending executives to learn from their model. But the most significant changes weren't captured in statistics or corporate reports. They lived in the small moments: a hungry child receiving a fresh meal, an elderly customer finding community in the store's new gathering space, a homeless person being treated with dignity rather than suspicion. The security cameras still recorded everything, but now they documented a daily testament to human kindness. One evening, as Alex locked up the store, he found a handwritten note from Keanu. Sometimes the greatest acts of courage are the quiet ones. Keep changing the world, one meal at a time. The note joined the photo wall, not as a celebrity endorsement, but as a reminder that change often starts with a single act of defiance against indifference. Fresh Foods Market had become more than a grocery store. It had become proof that when compassion confronts corporate policy, when humanity challenges profit margins, transformation is possible. The store's motto, Fresh Foods, Fresh Start, now spoke truth. Every day offered a fresh start, not just for the food that once filled dumpsters, but for the people who had found hope in a place where kindness finally outweighed policy.